Native cook lied about her age, until a rancher said love doesn't count years, only moments surrounded by wide land and quiet skies. Every morning the sun rose slowly over the fields, lighting the wooden fences and the long stretch of grass that seemed to go on forever. The rancher had lived there for most of his life. His days followed the same pattern. Wake up before dawn, check on the animals, fix whatever needed fixing, and end the evening tired but calm. He did not complain about the loneliness, but it had become a silent companion over the years. Running the ranch was not easy, and as time passed, the work only grew heavier. The ranch hands came and went, but one problem stayed the same: food. Meals were rushed, poorly prepared, and often skipped. The rancher noticed how low energy and tired faces affected the work. Finally, he accepted that he could not do everything alone. He decided to hire a cook, someone who could bring order and warmth to the daily routine. Word spread quietly through nearby towns. A few people showed interest, but most left after seeing how remote the place was. Then one afternoon, a woman arrived at the ranch gate. She stood straight, carrying a small bag, her expression calm but alert. She introduced herself politely and said she was a cook looking for steady work. Her voice was soft but confident. She spoke clearly, without trying to impress. The rancher noticed her hands first. They were strong hands, used to work, not delicate or unsure. She explained her experience simply, mentioning places she had worked and the kind of food she knew how to prepare. When asked her age, she answered without hesitation, giving a number that sounded reasonable. The rancher nodded and did not question it. To him, effort and honesty in work mattered more than details. She was hired the same day. The first morning she cooked, the smell of warm bread and slow-cooked food filled the air. The ranch hands gathered quietly, surprised by the change. The food was simple, but it felt thoughtful, prepared with care. The woman moved calmly in the kitchen, focused, wasting no motion. She greeted everyone with respect but kept her distance, choosing to observe before speaking too much. He noticed how the mood changed. People talked more, worked better, and complained less. It was as if the ranch itself had taken a deep breath. He told himself it was just good food making a difference, nothing more. Days passed, and the cook settled into her role. She woke before sunrise and worked until the last meal was done. She cleaned without being asked, organized the kitchen, and even helped outside when needed. She never acted tired or bitter. There was a quiet strength about her, shaped by a life that had not been easy. Sometimes, during early mornings, the rancher would stop by the kitchen. They exchanged short conversations about the weather, the animals, or what food would last longer during busy days. She listened more than she spoke. When she did speak, her words were thoughtful and careful. The rancher found himself looking forward to these small moments. He did not understand why. He had lived alone for so long that he had forgotten what shared silence felt like. With her, silence was not uncomfortable. It was calm. She, on the other hand, carried a quiet weight inside her. Every night, when the kitchen lights were off and the ranch was asleep, she thought about the lie she had told. The number she gave for her age stayed heavy in her mind. She told herself she had no choice. In her past, being honest had often cost her opportunities. People judged before understanding. She needed this job, and she needed peace. Still, each day she worked harder, hoping her actions would speak louder than the one thing she had hidden. As the weeks passed, the ranch began to feel different. The cook planted small herbs near the kitchen window. She fixed small things without asking. She remembered how people liked their meals. The ranch hands respected her, not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. The rancher noticed changes in himself, too. He stayed longer at the table. He asked questions he had not asked anyone in years. He laughed quietly at small jokes. The loneliness that once felt permanent now softened around the edges. One evening, after a long day, the rancher stayed behind while everyone else left. The cook was cleaning, her movements slow but steady. The sun was setting, painting the sky in warm colors. For a moment, neither spoke. "You've changed this place," the rancher said finally. She paused, surprised. "I just do my work," she replied. He shook his head slightly. "It's more than that." She looked down, unsure how to respond. Praise made her uncomfortable. Attention did too. She had learned long ago to stay unnoticed. That night, as she lay in her small room near the kitchen, she stared at the ceiling. The ranch felt safe. Too safe. And that scared her. She knew that lies grow heavier the longer they are carried, but she also knew that truth could break things she was not ready to lose. The rancher, in his own room, thought about the day. He wondered how a simple decision to hire a cook had changed his life so quietly. He did not label his feelings. He only knew that the ranch no longer felt empty. Outside, the land rested under the stars. The animals were quiet. The wind moved gently through the fields. Neither of them knew that this calm beginning was only the first step in a journey that would test trust, honesty, and the meaning of connection. Life on the ranch slowly found a new rhythm. Mornings no longer felt rushed or heavy. The smell of fresh food greeted the day, and the sound of quiet movement in the kitchen became part of the ranch's heartbeat. The cook moved through her tasks with ease, as if she had always belonged there. She learned the habits of the place, the times when work slowed, the days when it grew harder, and the moods of the people who lived and worked on the land. The rancher noticed everything, even when he pretended not to. He noticed how she remembered small details, like who preferred a lighter meal and who needed more food after long hours. He noticed how she spoke gently to everyone, never raising her voice, never demanding attention. Respect followed her naturally. At first, their conversations stayed simple. A few words in the morning, a short exchange in the evening. But over time, those moments stretched. Sometimes they talked about the land, how the seasons changed it, how rain could save or ruin a month of work. Other times they spoke about food, memories tied to taste, and how certain meals carried stories within them. She rarely spoke about herself. When asked, she answered briefly, always careful. Her past felt like a door she kept closed. Not because she was hiding something bad, but because she had learned that not everyone deserved to know everything. The rancher respected that. He had his own quiet past, too. Loss, disappointment, and long years of responsibility had shaped him into someone who chose silence over explanation. In her quiet nature, he recognized something familiar. As days passed, trust began to grow in small ways. He trusted her with the kitchen, with supplies, with decisions. She trusted him to keep his word, to treat her fairly, and to give her space. Neither of them spoke about trust, but it settled between them like something steady and real. One afternoon, the weather turned harsh. Heavy clouds rolled in, and rain poured down without warning. The ranch hands returned early, soaked and tired. The cook worked quickly, preparing warm food and drinks. The rancher stood nearby, watching her handle pressure calmly. "You handle things well," he said quietly. She gave a small smile. "You learn to," she replied. There was something in her tone that hinted at experience beyond her words. The rancher felt curiosity rise, but he did not push. Some truths come only when invited. That evening, after the storm passed, the two of them sat at opposite ends of the long table. The ranch was quiet again. The cook poured tea and sat down, something she rarely did. The rancher noticed but did not comment. For a while, they sat in silence. "Do you ever miss being somewhere else?" he asked gently. She thought for a moment. "Sometimes," she said. "But I like places where I can work in peace." He nodded. Peace is hard to find. Not just the rancher, but the man behind the work. "You built a good place here," she said. Her words stayed with him longer than he expected. As the weeks continued, their connection deepened quietly. It was not sudden or dramatic. It grew through shared routines and small kindnesses. A cup of tea left on the table, a repaired shelf without being asked, a quiet thank you at the end of a long day. The cook felt it too. She felt safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. The ranch did not judge her. The people did not ask too many questions. And the rancher treated her with respect, never crossing lines, never making her feel small. But safety brought fear with it. Each kind word made the lie about her age feel heavier. She told herself it was harmless. It changed nothing about her work or her character. Still, late at night, her thoughts returned to it. She wondered what would happen if the truth came out. Would the trust she had built disappear? One morning, a traveling supplier arrived earlier than expected. He spoke casually, asking questions about the ranch and the people working there. He spoke to the cook briefly, making a comment that made her tense. It was nothing direct, but it reminded her how easily things could unravel. The rancher noticed her unease. Later that day, he asked if she was all right. "I'm fine," she said quickly. He believed her, but something in her eyes stayed with him. It was the look of someone carrying more than they showed. As time went on, feelings began to surface that neither of them named. The rancher found himself thinking about her during the day, wondering if she had eaten enough or rested enough. He listened more closely when she spoke. He noticed when she seemed tired. The cook noticed his quiet care too, the way he checked if she needed anything before heading out, the way he made sure her space was respected, the way his voice softened when speaking to her. These moments confused her. She had promised herself she would never let emotions interfere with survival. Yet here she was, feeling something warm and unfamiliar. One evening, as the sky darkened early, the power went out. The ranch fell into darkness, lit only by lanterns and the moon outside. The cook worked by lantern light, calm as ever. The rancher joined her, holding a light while she finished preparing food. Their hands brushed briefly. Both froze for a moment. "Sorry," he said. "It's okay," she replied softly. The air felt different after that. Not uncomfortable, but aware, as if something had shifted quietly between them. That night, after everyone else had gone to sleep, the cook sat alone, listening to the sounds of the ranch. She knew she could not stay in this space forever without consequences. Feelings had a way of bringing truth to the surface. The rancher lay awake too. He stared at the ceiling, thinking about how his life had changed without him noticing. He did not try to define what he felt. He only knew that the cook mattered to him more than he expected. Neither of them spoke about it the next day. Life continued as usual, but something unspoken lived between them now. Something fragile, something honest, something waiting. And deep inside the cook, the fear remained. She knew that secrets could not live forever. The truth was moving closer, step by step, carried by the very trust she had worked so hard to build. The ranch stayed quiet, holding its breath, as the story moved forward toward a moment neither of them could avoid. The days continued with the same steady rhythm, but something invisible had changed. The cook moved through her work as always, calm and focused, yet inside her thoughts were restless. Small moments now carried weight. Every conversation felt closer to a line she knew she could not avoid forever. The rancher sensed it too. He noticed how she paused before answering certain questions, how her smile sometimes faded too quickly. He did not push. He had learned that pressure often closed doors instead of opening them. One afternoon, a neighbor from a nearby ranch stopped by. He was older, friendly, and liked to talk. He had known the area for many years and enjoyed sharing stories. The rancher welcomed him politely, offering a seat and a drink. The cook prepared food quietly, staying in the background as she usually did. The neighbor spoke about the past, about people he had known, and about how time moved faster than it once did. Then, without meaning any harm, he looked toward the cook and said something casual about her age, comparing it to a memory from long ago. His words were not sharp or unkind, but they landed hard. The cook froze for just a second. The rancher noticed. She corrected the neighbor gently, offering the age she had always given. The neighbor laughed softly, confused, and said he thought she was younger than that. It was a small moment, easily missed, but the air shifted. After the neighbor left, silence filled the ranch. The cook returned to her work, but her hands shook slightly. She focused on the task, hoping the moment would pass. It did not. That evening, the rancher found her alone in the kitchen. The sun had already set, and the room was quiet except for the sound of water running. He stood by the doorway for a moment, watching her steady herself. "Can we talk?" he asked gently. She nodded, though her chest tightened. He did not accuse or question right away. He simply said, "Something earlier felt off. I just want honesty." Her face was calm, but her eyes carried fear. She took a deep breath, the kind that comes before a difficult truth. "I wasn't honest about my age," she said quietly. The words hung in the air. The rancher did not react right away. He waited, giving her space to continue. "I was afraid," she said. "I've lost work before when people focused on numbers instead of effort. I needed this job. I needed peace. So I chose safety over truth." Her voice trembled, but she did not look away. The rancher leaned against the table, processing her words. He felt surprise, yes, but also something else, understanding. "How old are you?" he asked calmly. She told him the truth. For a long moment, neither spoke. The cook felt her chest tighten, expecting disappointment, anger, or distance. She had prepared herself for all of it. "I should leave," she said finally. "I broke your trust." "Sit," he said. She hesitated, then sat across from him, hands folded tightly. "You worked hard," he said. "You changed this place. One mistake doesn't erase that." Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them back. "It matters," she said. "I lied." "Yes," he replied, "but I want to understand why." "Not everything, but enough. About being judged too quickly. Doors closing before she could prove herself. About learning to protect herself in a world that often decided her value too fast." The rancher listened without interrupting. When she finished, he let the silence settle. "I won't pretend it doesn't matter," he said honestly, "but I care more about who you are than a number." "I should have told you," she said. "Every day I meant to." "I believe you," he replied. Relief washed over her, mixed with guilt and gratitude. She had expected the worst. What she found instead was patience. Still, something had changed. Trust, once shaken, needed care to heal. In the days that followed, both of them moved carefully. The cook worked with the same dedication, but she spoke less. She worried she had crossed a line she could not fully repair. The rancher noticed the distance and felt it too. He respected her space, even though he missed their easy conversations. One morning, he found a note on the kitchen table. It was short and honest. She wrote that she understood if he needed time or distance, that she would accept whatever decision he made. He folded the note and put it in his pocket. Later that day, he stopped by the kitchen while she was preparing food. He did not speak at first. He simply stayed, helping quietly. The shared work felt familiar, grounding. People are more than the mistakes they make, he said eventually. I've learned that the hard way. She nodded, tears in her eyes again. So have I. From that moment, something shifted again. Not back to the way it was before, but forward into something more honest. The lie was gone. The truth, though uncomfortable, had made room for something real. The cook felt lighter, even as she feared the future. The rancher felt clearer, even as he questioned his own feelings. At night, both of them lay awake, thinking about the same question from different sides. What did this truth mean for what was growing between them? Neither had the answer yet. The ranch remained quiet, steady as ever. The land did not judge. The animals did not care about numbers or past mistakes. They responded only to care and consistency. And slowly, day by day, trust began to rebuild. Not as something perfect, but as something real, shaped by honesty and choice. The days after the truth came out felt slower, as if time itself had decided to move with care. Nothing on the ranch looked different, yet everything felt changed. The cook still woke before sunrise. The rancher still walked the land each morning. Work continued, meals were served, and animals were cared for. But beneath these routines, both of them were thinking more than they spoke. The cook carried a mix of relief and fear. The secret was no longer hers alone, and that brought peace, yet she worried about what might follow. Truth does not always heal everything right away. Sometimes it opens new questions instead. She stayed focused on her work, hoping her actions would show what words could not. The rancher watched her closely, though quietly. He noticed the effort she put into every task, the care in each meal, and the way she still treated everyone with the same respect. Nothing about her work had changed. If anything, she seemed more present, more real. That mattered to him. One evening, after a long day, the rancher asked her to sit with him outside. The air was cool, and the sky was wide and clear. They sat on wooden chairs, facing the open land. For a moment, neither spoke. "I've been thinking," he said finally. She nodded, waiting. "About time," he continued. "About how much of life I've spent counting years instead of moments." She listened carefully, her hands resting quietly in her lap. "When you told me the truth," he said, "I realized something. The moments we've shared here, working, talking, sitting in silence, they mattered to me. They still do." She looked at him then, surprised by the calm in his voice. "I don't want fear to decide what happens next," he added. "For either of us." Her eyes filled with emotion. "I never wanted to cause harm," she said softly. "I just wanted a chance to live without being judged too quickly." He nodded. "I understand that more than you think." That conversation did not solve everything, but it opened a door. They began speaking more openly after that. Not all at once, and not about everything, but enough to move forward. The cook shared more of her past. She spoke about moving from place to place, taking work where she could, and learning to rely on herself. She spoke about how often people decided who she was before knowing her. She never spoke with bitterness, only honesty. The rancher shared parts of his life too. He spoke about loss, about responsibility arriving early, and about choosing work over closeness for many years. He admitted that he had grown used to being alone even when it hurt. Listening to each other changed something deep between them. Understanding replaced doubt. Respect grew stronger. Still, the rancher struggled with one thing. He cared deeply for her, and he knew it. But he also knew that caring meant responsibility. He did not want to lead her into uncertainty or cause pain. One afternoon, while walking the land together, he stopped and looked at her seriously. "I need to be honest, too," he said. "I care about you, but I don't want to rush into anything without being sure we're both ready." She appreciated his words more than any promise. "I don't need rushing," she replied. "I just need honesty." They continued walking, side by side, comfortable in the quiet. Over the next weeks, their bond grew stronger in small, meaningful ways. They worked together more often. They shared meals at the same table. Sometimes they laughed, sometimes they sat quietly, watching the land breathe around them. The ranch hands noticed the change, too. The atmosphere felt warmer, steadier. There was no gossip, No drama, just a sense of balance that came from people being honest with themselves and each other. One evening, a small celebration took place on the ranch. Nothing special, just a meal shared after a successful season. The cook prepared food that reminded her of home. The rancher helped set the table. The laughter that filled the space felt genuine and earned. Later that night, after everyone had gone, the rancher and the cook stayed behind, cleaning together. "I'm glad you stayed," he said quietly. "So am I," she replied. He looked at her not with doubt, but with clarity. "I don't measure people by numbers anymore," he said. "I measure them by how they show up. By how they care." She smiled through tears. "Then I promise to always show up honestly." As days turned into weeks, their relationship settled into something strong and real. There was no rush to define it, no pressure to label it. It grew naturally, shaped by shared effort and mutual respect. The cook felt something she had not felt in a long time: belonging. Not just to the ranch, but to the life she was building there. The rancher felt something he thought he had lost: hope. One morning, as the sun rose over the land, the rancher stood watching the cook move through the kitchen window. He realized then that love did not arrive loudly. It came quietly, through moments of care, patience, and understanding. He walked inside and said simply, "I'm glad you're here." The ranch continued to stand strong, holding their story gently. What began with uncertainty had grown into trust. What began with fear had turned into choice. They both knew the road ahead would not always be easy. But they also knew they would walk it with honesty, guided not by years counted, but by moments shared. The ranch welcomed a new season, and with it came a quiet sense of completion. The land looked familiar, yet brighter, as if it reflected the change in the people who lived and worked on it. The cook and the rancher continued their days much as before, but something steady and warm now lived between them. There was no confusion anymore, no heavy silence filled with unspoken fear. What remained was honesty. Mornings were peaceful. The cook moved through the kitchen with confidence, her work guided by habit and care. The rancher often stopped by, not because he needed to, but because he wanted to. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. Either way, the moments felt full. The cook no longer feared being seen. She stood taller, laughed more freely, and allowed herself to rest when needed. The truth had given her freedom. She no longer carried the weight of pretending. The rancher noticed this change and felt proud, though he never said it out loud. Their connection deepened in simple ways. They shared walks across the land at sunset. They talked about plans for the ranch, small improvements, and ideas for the future. They also talked about ordinary things, favorite memories, small hopes, and lessons learned from hard times. One evening, while sitting outside under a sky filled with stars, the cook spoke softly. "I used to think I had to earn my place everywhere I went," she said, "like I had to prove myself every single day." The rancher listened carefully. "You don't have to earn respect here," he replied. "You already have it." Her eyes filled with emotion, not sadness, but gratitude. Those words meant more to her than any promise ever could. As time passed, the ranch hands noticed how naturally the two of them worked together. There was no show, no display, just understanding. The ranch felt stable, grounded in care rather than control. One afternoon, the rancher faced a difficult decision about expanding part of the land. It meant more work and risk. He asked the cook what she thought, something he would not have done in the past. "I think growth is good," she said, "but only when it doesn't cost peace." Her answer stayed with him. He realized how much he valued her way of seeing the world. Not rushed, not fearful, just thoughtful. The decision was made carefully, and together they managed the changes. They supported each other when work grew tiring. They reminded each other to rest, to eat, to pause. Love, they learned, lived in these small reminders. There was no grand moment where everything was declared. No loud words or dramatic promises. Instead, one quiet morning, the rancher placed a cup of tea in front of her and said, "I want to build whatever comes next with you." She looked at him, understanding exactly what he meant. "So do I," she replied. From that day on, they moved forward together. Not as people hiding behind fear or labels, but as two individuals choosing honesty and care every day. The cook began teaching others her recipes, sharing not just food but stories behind them. The rancher found joy in seeing the land thrive, knowing he was no longer carrying everything alone. There were challenges, of course. Life never stopped testing patience. Some days were harder than others. But when doubt appeared, they faced it together, openly and calmly. One evening, a visitor asked the rancher how he knew this path was right. He smiled and answered simply, Because it feels honest. The cook heard those words from across the room and smiled too. As the year turned, the ranch felt more like a home than ever before. It held laughter, quiet talks, and shared effort. The land did not care about numbers, titles, or past mistakes. It responded only to care. Standing together one morning, watching the sun rise over the fields, the rancher said, "I used to think love was about timing." The cook looked at him. "And now? Now I think it's about moments," he said, "and choosing them again and again." She nodded. "That sounds right." The story of the ranch was no longer just about land and work. It was about two people who chose truth over fear, moments over years, and care over judgment. And in doing so, they found something rare. Not perfection, but peace.